Good afternoon YouTube and welcome back to the channel and Project E92 M3. And in today's video we're going to go through how to modify the standard exhaust, giving it that true V8 wonderful sound for very little money, if you can weld, as you're probably going to see in this video. So for long-time subscribers of the channel, you'll be familiar with the 2011 E92 M3 that I have, the competition model. I had a 2-pipe modification on the exhaust when I bought it. I put the pre-decat delete on there. Sounded like an absolute race car. The problem was it was just too much, and you'd go for overtakes and I'd think, oh God, what are people thinking in that car? You don't want to draw that kind of attention to yourself, well at least I didn't. And then I went with installing the beautiful Carbonus full carbon intake, and the problem with the exhaust being so loud is you could only hear that right at the bottom of the RPM and right at the top, and the intake noise on this with a V8 on throttle bodies on a carbon plenum, just beautiful. So I made the decision to keep the pre-cat deletes in place, so the front catalysts removed or hollowed out, straight piped, and a standard back box. And initially I thought, wow, this is incredible, it's all intake noise, but I started to miss that hard bark from the back that you'd get on the DCT downshifts. There were certain RPMs where it felt like it just needed a bit more drama, and I made the decision to modify the standard back box. Now this isn't anything new. For those that aren't familiar, the back box modifications have been going on for years. It's the cheapest way of doing it, and I think it's the best because personally you can change the tips, you get that nice underbody look from the standard back box, because when you put an aftermarket one in, it leaves all gaps by the heat shields, which I didn't like. So I made the decision, as I say, to modify it. And now there are companies out there, Modstock, PCW, all do this for you. So if you're just intrigued to see how this is done, but you have no interest in doing it yourself, check those guys out because they really are fantastic at it. And I've got to say a big thanks to PCW Exhaust, because they actually put a guide up with all the sections to cover up. So it wouldn't have been a lot more of a challenge without them. So I'll link that link to their website in the description. You can have a look at the different cover-ups which we'll go through in this video. But essentially I had the 2-pipe modification and the pre-cat delete. Sounded like a race car, way too much. So for those of you watching the video, please continue watching all the way through and watch all the tedious adverts. Yesterday, the GoPro blew over in the wind. It was on the tripod. It smashed all the lens. So for the minuscule amount of revenue I make, it's unfortunately not weighed out. So yeah, I'm going to need to get the GoPro sent off to be replaced because the back screen is smashed. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. With the car safely secured on axle stands either side, you can now begin working on the exhaust. Now some of you may have spotted that I didn't jack from the diff. It's advised not to do that on the E92 M3, so I've always done it from the rear subframe point, but if you have got a small trolley jack, you're probably going to suffer. Now to remove the back box, we've got 2 bolts down there, the camera's focusing on my finger, that we're going to remove, which I'll show shortly. The 2 rubber mounts, and then back under the silencer you've got a hanger rubber mount each side, and the ones that secure it to the bumper and up through to the rear of the car. And then once they're undone, you can then drop the exhaust. Now I normally leave these 2 on the side till last, then I undo those and lower the exhaust down on a trolley jack. So this is not the most awesome job on the floor, if I'm honest, but as you can see, these are the 2 bolts that we need to undo to remove the back box from the center section. And then just up here we have got the rubber mounts that we need to remove, and I just use a pair of mole grips to slide these off, so hopefully the camera will get a good angle of this, but the front of the car is a little bit low. The only mount securing the back box will be these ones on either side, and essentially they've got two 13mm nuts, one on the front, one on the back. You don't want to undo them all the way, because if you do, the back box will fall to the floor. It's incredibly heavy, surprisingly heavy. But once you get those lowered into position, and there's about 3 or 4 threads left on each nut, you can then put the trolley jack underneath to support it, undo the last bit, and then you can lower the whole exhaust down with the trolley jack, which I'll show you now. With the back box now in the garage and on my motorcycle ramp, making life much easier for it to work on at normal waist height, I'm going to start modifying the back box. So as hopefully you can see, these are obviously the standard mounts now, one either side. Hopefully makes more sense seeing it off the car. And then this is the one that was on the back of the bracket. And then we've got the rubber hangers, the red ones that we removed, and the part that links to the center pipes. And it's important to check these just to make sure there's no splits or cracks, because they do fail. But the main thing to note now is that you want it in the same angle or direction that it's on the car. So this would be going up towards the car, and the underside would be down towards the tarmac. Reason for that is we are going to cut open these sections, and if you cut the other side, you'll see it from underneath, whereas this will all be hidden. And if you jack the car and put the back box back on, it will never be able to tell that it's had any changes to the back box unless you dropped it off the car. So let's get underway with chopping those sections open. As you can hopefully see, I've used a marker pen to try and give myself some sort of guidance for where to cut with a grinder. You've got to remember that with a grinding disc, it's going to be very difficult to cut circles or curvature shapes. So that's why I've sort of done these straight lines so that I can make sure I get a nice consistent cut, hopefully, with the grinder. And I'm going to use a 1mm cutting disc, which is incredibly thin, so it should go through this like a hot knife through butter. Now, for those that have watched the previous videos, you remember we did the exhaust tip modification. If you haven't seen that and you're interested in making your standard tips look that much better, then I'll link the video at the end of this one. But as I say, today we're just going to be focusing on getting into there and showing you how to make the V8 really sing. So there we have it. I didn't realise it was actually double skinned on each piece, so it was a little surprise, but nothing too dramatic to worry about. Obviously, I ran off a little bit there, but this is going to be the least of the problems. As I've never welded in my life before, and I've bought a welder, I think that's going to be the most disgusting part. But as long as it's solid, you're not going to see it from when it's on the car, because I say this will go back up underneath. Unless it's removed, you wouldn't notice. But essentially, as you can see now, you've got these perforated sections, and what happens is the exhaust gases come from the engine, they go into these perforated bits, and the sound dissipates into the packaging stuff. So we've got to take all that out, and then I will show you what sections you need to cover up for potentially how loud you want it. Now, I don't want it to be as loud as I had it before, which was classed as the 2-pipe mod. I want somewhere between where it is now and the 2 pipes, so what I guess you'd call a 1-pipe mod, but we'll go through that once I've removed the packaging. So the first look with the exhaust packaging removed, so essentially the stuff that reduces the noise, and what we're trying to achieve here is removing or reducing the perforated section. So if anyone knows in the comments I've got this wrong, please let me know and I'll add it to the description. But essentially each pipe is each side. So if you were to, for example, do the 2-pipe modification, you would completely cover these sections down here, which is what I had before, but that was just too loud, really antisocial. So what I want to do, because there's some more perforated sections in here, see in there, some smaller ones in there, is actually cover half of this, which I assume will be the 1-pipe mod, and then people do the 1.5. And from what I gather, it makes a huge difference. I dare do a 4-pipe mod. As I mentioned in the intro, once you put them pre-cats on, it really ups the volume and it turns it into a proper thunder sound. And whilst it's cool when it's flat out, it's too much for me for daily driving. It pulls the wrong kind of attention when you're driving the car. So what I want to do is say we're going to find out now what diameter this is, and then I'm going to order some aluminium tube, cut it in half, and then Jubilee clamp it around it to reduce that silence in effect. And hopefully that will give me the improved note I'm looking for. first look at my alley sleeves. I mean, the beauty of them being slightly smaller, because I think it was an internal of 60mm on these, or 62. And by the time I've cut the sliver out, obviously I've lost a bit, but they pinch over there nicely. I've managed to use a pair of the old oil filter pliers just to clamp it around there. But my concern is, not that it's a performance problem, but I've got these perforated lines still open on the top and bottom, which probably makes it more of a 0.45 modification. I'm going to contemplate whether I make them slightly longer, maybe another set just to compensate for that. But to be honest with you, it's at the halfway point. As soon as those Jubilee clips arrive, I can clamp those in place and then we can put it back together. And the beauty is, because I've got a welder now, I can trial it for a couple of months, test it for you guys, and then report back if I need any more or whether I've got it spot on. A week has passed since the last section of this video. The magic of YouTube editing is it'll look like a mere second, but I've had to wait for some parts to turn up, and that being some of the new Jubilee clips that we're going to use to band the alley pipe in place so that it doesn't move, one either side. And then I've also had some final bits turn up for the welder. Had a little play last night for about 20 minutes. God, I tried to put 100 amps through whatever it is, 2mm steel, really not sure with currents and that until I found a guide, and it's actually about 20 amps that I needed. And I managed to start putting a small trail into the inner steel plate that I've used as a sample, because I'm just going to use the standard single skin back in, and fingers crossed we can weld it up. But yeah, let's get this all packaged back in, put the Jubilee clips on, temporarily put the covers in place with some masking tape, tack weld it, and then see if I can get this welding done. Now, unfortunately, as you can see in this clip, this is my first attempt at welding on the actual silencer itself. Now, the problem was, which I didn't realise at the time, all my practicing had actually used my whole can of argon gas, and that's what you need to be able to TIG weld. So I kept blowing holes in stuff, making a right mess. And thankfully, my good friend Spence said, look, I've got my industrial welder. It's probably going to be too powerful for this, but it'll get us out of trouble. And he came and saved the day. So I guess it's time to go out for a drive. How different does it sound? Obviously, we've done a quick start up. I let the car get up to temperature for 15 minutes, got the oil up, give it a few revs, which hopefully you heard at the end of the video. Pre-cat delete, and the one pipe mod and the Carbonus airbox. It's always difficult to try and get these sounds across on the video. It always sounds so much better in person, but we've got to try and mimic getting these noises to where my ears are for you guys at home to hear. Well, we've got the microphones. Let's go out for a little drive and see what we can pull off. So we're on a little bit of road I normally use just for a bit of testing. It's a 50-mile-an-hour section, so it allows you just to get it up through first, second gear a little bit. And initial impressions I can tell you leaving the house is a little bit more on idle, a little bit more just cruising, but barely noticeable. But what I did notice is, because I've kept the revs down low for you guys for the first time to hear it with me, is it does the auto blip in auto, and it was definitely louder on that. So I mean, now we're in, let's put it into fourth, and if I load up, all still intake as expected, but if we go down, oh, we got the rasp back. That's what I wanted. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh, and the pop as well. That's what I missed, the rasp on the blips. God. Yeah, perfect, perfect. Yeah, really happy with that. Wow, a little bit of pipe makes that much difference. That's unbelievable. What a sound. So yeah, good little modification. Not a lot of money if you can weld. Just, yeah, we've got that back. Just the bark, which I missed. That's what I really missed on the downshifts. And obviously I've got the rear seats out, which makes quite a difference anyway. So a little test for you all. If you think your exhaust is maybe just not quite loud enough, just go out with your rear seats down. Just fold them down. Don't have to do anything else. It's amazing how much that rear bench insulates everything coming back through the cabin. But yeah, that is really good. Such an Asbo car. Now that is perfect. What I've done there, exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I wanted. I love it when a plan comes together. So that wraps up the exhaust modification. Again, a big thanks to my friend Spence. Got to go back to the drawing board with this welding malarkey. I mean, more for me for thinking I was going to be able to TIG weld, which is harder than MIG weld straight off the back. And I thought I'd got the hang of it, but yeah, it's different when it actually comes to put it into practice. And there's certainly an art to welding that I never doubted, but I thought, you know what, I'm pretty hands-on anyway. How bad will it be for me to pick up, even if it's not the most pretty thing? But yeah, that's something I'm still going to have to work on. And maybe let me know if you want to see in the comments. Should we do a video on me seeing what I can weld, what mess I can make on metal? That I don't know. Will someone find that interesting? Maybe not. But until next time, thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and see you in the next one.